Alrighty, let's watch the complete guide to startups and see all the
A
things that
startup
I don't
is a
know.
type of company, usually in the technology field, that allows
is
mediocre
true.
men to feed their egos by exploiting the time,
Also
labor,
true.
or wealth of other people. Now, if you're watching
Alright.
this, there's a decent chance you want to create
Already stop crying. Like, you're already crying so much, dude, and like, take it easy. It's not exploitation when somebody voluntarily enters into a fair arrangement. Doesn't mean that every arrangement that they've entered into with all of these tech companies is fair. No. Doesn't mean that every definitional use of labor is exploitative and unfair. Also, no. So it's like, all right, like, funny joke, but completely fucking wrong.
your own startup. Maybe you're a new grad, longtime software engineer, or a sociopath with an unquenchable desire for power and control. Either way, everyone is welcome here, as long as you don't have a life and have no problem working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. First, let's talk about the difference
don't need
between a
to do
startup
either of those
and a
things, which is
traditional
nice.
business. In a traditional business, you provide a good or service to someone in exchange for money.
This is true.
However, if you're stupid enough to start a company like this, you'll only be able to provide a
Failure.
good life for your family and send your kids to college.
Yeah, what
if
a
you want to
loser.
become
Where's your
supreme
Lambo?
ruler of the world and satisfy your quench for power by landing on a Forbes
kind
list,
and merciful
there's only
God
one way
King.
to do that: with a startup. In a startup, you sell imaginary goods or services and lose money. Losing money is key.
This is
because
true.
the more money you lose, the hotter your startup.
Oh,
and the more
yes.
funding
We've
you'll be able to
wasted $1
get.
billion.
And with that extra funding, you'll be able to extract even more money from your users, basically providing you with a real-life infinite money hack. When founding your own startup, you'll first need to decide what your startup is going to do. Lucky for you, there are numerous
Just
fields
you
that are
say
incredibly
crypto
hot
things.
in tech
Crypto,
right
SaaS,
now. Have a really big loan
AI,
capacity? Try
agentic
crypto.
model.
Fan of how banks fuck over the
Unicorn.
little guy? Fintech. Want to exploit the vulnerable? Healthcare.
I mean, kind
Want to
of.
exploit the already exploited?
You mean the
do
hungry?
anything with on demand in the name. Want to do evil shit? AI.
Kind of. No.
Want to do evil shit?
It's not
but you dropped out
evil
of
if
college?
it's AI. You just
Metaverse.
don't know how to read.
Of course, these will all be irrelevant in 3 years when the new Gidgy Do Biddly Bop comes out. So
The
you better
AI
get
hasn't
to work.
come up with the
You'll
new
also have to
idea yet,
decide
so we
if
don't
you're
know
going
what
to
it
be
is.
an enterprise or consumer company. Enterprise companies sell their product to other enterprise companies in a never-ending
This is
cycle
true.
of keep the rich people's money away from poor people. Consumer companies, on the other hand,
Yes.
extract money from the poor people to put into the aforementioned
We
cycle.
do it with a needle.
Now that you've
That's how
picked your
startups
field,
do it.
it's
If we
time to
could,
turn
if we
your
could just stick a
idea
needle in
into
you
a
and suck
reality.
out the revenue
A
straight
well-known
from
principle
there,
in startups
that's what we
is
prefer.
to sell before you build, which basically means make up some fake shit and get people's money for it. After stealing
Let me rephrase that because it's almost right. It's almost right. It's validate that there's demand for what you want to sell before selling.
people's money, I mean receiving their advanced payment for the beta, it's
There you
time to
go.
get to work. If you're a technical founder,
this?
you can dive
Assassin's
right
Creed?
in. If you're not technical, you're going to need to trick some unsuspecting CS grad into doing the work for you.
Back in
with
the day,
promises
yeah.
of untold riches and
Not as
totally
much
fair
anymore,
stock
which is nice.
options. In those early moments, you'll be full of excitement and energy, chomping at the bit to do everything you can for your startup. Every line of code you write brings a fresh new coat of paint to your vision. Every git commit -a-m, nothing's gonna
I don't know
ever
what any of
stop
that
me now,
means.
motherfuckers. Like a line of cocaine directly into your hippocampus. As you finish integrating the
that.
Stripe and Instagram APIs into your backend, you let out an ecstatic cry of joy. All that's left is to port your Figma design to React.
Login.
What's a few more hours? You push your code live to AWS and are finally able to rest on a grateful universe.
Wow.
3 hours later, all of which you've spent trying to figure out why the
Yeah,
console
that's
keeps
about
telling you
right.
to go to hell and fuck yourself with an Ethernet cable, you'll want to die. Living the dream, baby. The key to success when working at a startup is to have negative work-life balance. Or, as I like to call it, work. Oh, what's
The key to making a good startup is knowing what to offer and how to efficiently execute on that offering. You do not need to work 100 hours a week if you know the right 10 hours to spend.
that? You wanted to watch Netflix after work hours? Get that weak shit out of here. You know you could have spent those hours working,
Weeb
right?
shit, I like
Here's what a
that.
typical day at a startup looks like. 8 a.m. sharp, you burst through the door, Phil's coffee in hand, and make your way past the altar of neoliberalism to your desk. From 8 to 9, you check your
You know, this is very opposite all the day in the life startup videos that I feel like I see, where they're like getting up at 9 p.m., drinking coffee on their oceanside view. Then they go to Google and then they eat lunch for like 2.5 hours before they review some code that their intern did. And then they're really exhausted after that. So they use a nap pod. It's like it's the startup dichotomy of it's either like basically a spa that these tech nerds, you know, also happen to be around, or it's a hellhole of just doing nothing but work into oblivion.
emails, Slack, Jira tickets, and generally just bullshit around pretending to do work while you wake up.
Goddamn you, Jira.
From 9 to 9:30, you have your stand-up with your team, where everyone tries to bullshit a reason why they haven't
Everyone
finished
pretends
the
they
shit said
did
would
something
finish
yesterday
last
instead
week.
of catch up on
After
anime.
stand-up, you check out the bug that rolled in last night, realize you can't replicate it, spend 2 hours testing every permutation of every button on your site, and reading the one-sentence bug report like it's the Da Vinci Code, go to the designated frustration conference room and scream into a pillow, and then come back and give up. At 12, it's time for your 8-minute lunch break. Let's go,
I prefer
people.
7
That user
if they can
data
eat
isn't
a little
going to
quicker
sell
and get back
itself.
to work, get back to typing.
After lunch,
Those
you
Jira
work until
tickets.
2 on the new feature, being interrupted every 2 minutes by a support request or to provide feedback on something that doesn't need your feedback. From 2 to 4, you've got an architecture meeting to plan the next set of features, where a lot of
Yeah.
pedantic arguing happens.
And you're planning features that sales already sold like 6 months ago to customers that have already been like bitching their ear off, complaining about it. This is one of the horrible realities of as your startup gets bigger and starts to have to build more and more things and do more and more things, you start to become, you know, more inefficient, more big businessy, and you start paying the price for living in all those inefficiencies. As you can see, some people's experience not so great.
And no specs actually get written. From 4 to 7, you get nothing done, but have to pretend to do work, since it's more important to be able to say you're working 100-hour weeks
This is
than
just like
actually be
investment
smart
banking.
about your productivity. 3 months and the end of all communication with family and friends later, you'll finally have a 51% debugged product. Your DAOs, KPIs, TAMs, PPs, and D's nuts are looking good.
Wow.
You think to yourself, we're losing thousands of dollars per week. Perfect. We got him exactly where we want him. Time to go fundraise and take this to the next level.
Genius.
Fundraising is when you sell your company's stock for money, and is an important part of the startup life cycle.
that's true.
After all, your $6,000 Bay Area rent and $20 sweet greens aren't going to pay for themselves.
Absolutely.
If you don't have rich parents or can't
gotta be on
convince
that
your broke
ramen
parents
diet
to
as a
take out a
founder.
second mortgage, you've really only got one option: VCs. VCs are typically known as venture capitalists, but I like to call them VCMs, vampiric con men.
Yeah,
The job of a VC is to be the steward of billions of dollars,
correct.
not to do stupid shit like build affordable housing or feed the hungry, but to
Yuck.
give to psychotic 20 and 30-year-olds to build shit on the internet.
Bingo.
For VCs, the appeal is clear. You're another layer of bullshit away from doing any real work, and you get to reap even bigger rewards. Now,
Not all VCs don't do anything. Many VCs do very little, but there are a number of VCs that do quite a bit and really help and support and do this. And for some, they're so big and important that just getting an investment from them is so meaningful that it's like they've already done their part just by investing, because you can use their name to open doors that otherwise were closed for you. So there's kind of like a balancing act, but definitely VCs can add value, but under no circumstances would I ever say that an investor definitionally adds value, no matter if they're an angel, a VC, a friends and family, because anybody that's coming into the company has the potential to damage the company, whether it's the culture, the finances, the equity ownership, what have you. So I try to reserve judgment until I look at each situation and
when you hit
investor
up the
individually.
Libertarian White Guy Club to ask for money, you're gonna need a pitch deck. A pitch deck is your way to communicate to the VC why they should
Traction,
invest
yes,
in their
up and to the
company.
right. Go, go, go.
The key thing to remember when making a pitch deck is to be as delusional as possible. Just say
Yep.
fuck it and draw an exponential
don't
curve
actually
for
do
all your
this,
graphs,
but a lot of people
and talk
do
about how
do
the
this.
space you're going to be in is going to grow to $100 bajillion market.
I swear that one of the worst things that I think VCs have conditioned startups to do is position themselves and their market as hundreds of billions of gajillions of dollars, or else it's not valid. It's like, when is that ever true? The example I always like to use is, if I was to add, again, for the average person or average startup founder, let's say $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month to your life, just hitting your account, would that meaningfully change your life? And the response 99% of the times is, oh my God, that would make my life so much better. That would change everything. It's like, well, then why don't we start there? Why don't we set that as the goal and then look at the hundreds of millions of billions? I'm not saying you can't go build the next Uber, but if your life would be different by just having a few extra grand every month, we can get there first. We can get there first. And then from there, we can progress the business and make it into something bigger. If every time you assess your business, it's I don't know if we're on track to be worth 20 billion. I don't know if these investors are going to care. It's like, those investors, meaning the Andreessen Horowitz or whoever it is of the world, they may not care because their deal is unicorns. But the idea that your business wouldn't be appropriate for 1,000 other investors and wouldn't be an amazing $100 million, $500 million, $20 million company, like, these are huge, valuable, successful things. If you went to a dinner party and someone was like, oh, who's that lady over there? And it's like, oh, she owns like a $10 million, painting business. It'd be like, whoa. You would be impressed by the $10 million. You wouldn't go like, not a billion, later, loser. Looks like this lady isn't hungry. It looks like she's starving over there. It's like, that's not the energy you would give off. But for some reason, when you have to look at the critical nature of startup lands and like the 10 VCs that get, eyes and ears, all of a sudden, if it's not a unicorn, it doesn't matter. It's like, nah, it just doesn't feel true at all. And it feels very poisonous to the startup ecosystem as well.
By 2030. In the actual pitch meeting with VCs, don't be intimidated by their LaCroix or fancy-ass baths.
LaCroix.
In fact, during your pitch, I recommend talking like Donald Trump and making grandiose, unverifiable statements to power
hit the table a bunch. If you have a ring,
all in all,
like Kevin Spacey,
working in a startup isn't as glamorous as it seems. In fact, there are much, much, much easier ways to make money.
Whoa.
But with perseverance, hard work, and lots of single guy privilege, you too can found your own successful startup. After all, when you concentrate wealth in the hands of a vast minority, liberally hand out money to another reckless, ethically barren minority, and then have no regulations on what they can do, what could go wrong?
Regulations just slow down all the money. Why would we want that? Great video. Definitely a good look at one area of startups. Something that I would say is, this is a very specific use case, in the sense of, you're talking about the California or the New York or the Texas or the Oregon well-funded, single white male startup founder. You're not talking about the random Hispanic girl in Florida that comes up with a tech business, or the random black guy in, Minnesota that comes up with a tech business, or me, the random Hispanic guy from Arizona who came up with some businesses. It's like, there's so many other paradigms that startup founders can exist in, and this is definitely a very funny take on one version of it.